It might look like a fan film, but it captures the vibe of its source material perfectly and has some of the best performances in a film I've seen in quite a while. Let's get into it. Hey there, everyone. Welcome back to the show. This is Super Saturday, the show where we discuss all things super and awesome. And here we are at the tail end of the spooky season, and I was debating what to cover. Y'all know I like to lean things toward cartoons, but comics are also a passion of mine. And today's subject has had cartoons, it's had comics, maybe many comics, but we're going to dive into a live action film this here time. Today, we're going to cover Hellboy, the Crooked Man. Now, I will not bog down this review with retellings of the length and breadth of the Hellboy legacy. That's a video for another time. Nor will I dive deep into the history of Hellboy films, beyond saying this entry is the fourth live-action film to star the titular character. Building from a limited series of the same name, the film is directed by Brian Taylor, who sat down with Hellboy creator Mike Mignola and Christopher Golden to transfer this story from the comic book limited series onto the screen. Jack Kesey stars as Hellboy, along with Jefferson White as Tom Farrell and Adeline Rudolph in her film debut as Bobby Joe's Song. Filming back in March 2023 in Bulgaria and wrapped in May, so it was a quick, efficient suit. The film got a theatrical release there in Bulgaria on June 20th, 2024, but was released as direct-to-VOD here in the United States by Ketchup Entertainment on October 8th, 2024. Now, I will be steering clear of the spoiler territory with this one. It's fairly brand new, and I absolutely adore the twists and turns this film takes throughout its 99-minute runtime. Here's a spoiler right out of the gates, however. I freaking loved this film. But before I degenerate into gushy praise, let's discuss the rest of the facts surrounding it. Now, again trying to avoid spoilers, the film is set in 1959, where senior BPRD agent Hellboy and rookie Bobby Joe's Song are escorting some mystical cargo back to base. Right out of the gates, there was an element that sucked me right into the narrative. As they cross the Appalachian Mountains, dark powers take over, and their little trip gets wrecked. See, I'm from Appalachia, if there was any confusion. And I know the strange and weird things that happen here, more often than not dark things. So to see that so beautifully presented here on the big screen, well, that was a treat. And really, it was the nuance of how that dark weirdness was represented. It wasn't some giant kaiju come to smash things. No, it was subtle, but powerful. Powerful enough to drive Hellboy and Song's little passenger into a frenzy. Evil inciting evil and all that. Very well done, and I was tickled by this. Therein follows a hunt through Appalachian country to find their escapee, but they soon discover the escapee is the least of their problems. There's a story here that, again, resonates quite deeply with anybody from around these parts. Confusing is the man that originally penned the story, Mike Mignola, is a Berkeley, California boy. Well, I mean, what does he know about around here? But the story works. I can't fault it, and in fact praise it for being pretty darn accurate and familiar to this country boy. The story squirms from there, like the dark veins of coal that run through the land itself, mirroring those meandering tunnels. Things get dark, but the story remains engaging, consistent, and enthralling. I got sucked in and was deeply disappointed once it was over an hour and a half later. Beyond the story, I further want to sing the praises of all the actors involved in this. I could tell just watching this, these people wanted to be here, wanted to be these characters telling the story. Nothing was dialed in. Everything is sincere and earnest. Just a real treat to see that on the screen. Jack Kesey had some big old shoes to fill with Hellboy, following Ron Perlman's excellent outings from, sad to say, 20 years ago. Oh, God, Kesey really leans into Hellboy's more dour side. He's still a good guy through and through, but this Hellboy has his priorities, and everything else can go screw. I like it. Martin Bassendale as the Crooked Man is pretty darn good. Jefferson White as Tom Farrell is fantastic. Boy almost feels like he's straight out of some kind of a cult episode of the Waltons or something. It's very well done. And I had a hard time believing this was Adeline Rudolph's first outing, to be honest. She plays the part like she's been acting for a decade or more. Joseph Marcel as the Reverend is fantastic. Really enjoyed him. And both Leah McNamara and Hannah Margetson are both convincing witches without diving into tired old tropes and cliches. Good stuff all around. One element that doesn't sit right with me about the film is that it was intended to be a reboot of the series. I think that's unnecessary. This story stands on its own and is not impacted by anything that might have came after, like the Ron Perlman films. One can sit and enjoy the story and it's just another Hellboy story. It doesn't need this reboot stigma. Another criticism of the film that was floating around for a while was that AI was used for the creature effects. If it was, I couldn't tell. Taylor stated no AI was used and everything was practical, and as far as I could tell, he's telling the truth. Obviously, there's some CGI elements, but I felt like you got the Jurassic Park thing where it's built on the bones of something real and practical. But that's another element of the film that I felt really worked. The low budget. Practical effects were just spot on. Everything looked convincing and real and had some really clever and disturbing moments. Considering the absolute tiny little budget they had to work with, the folks that brought us this film worked wonders. But also, that's an element I would mention about the film as well. It absolutely does feel like a low budget film, but not as a criticism, more like the legendary Blair Witch Project, where it doesn't need the big budget to tell an engaging and enjoyable story. Sadly, the film, with its alleged $20 million budget, has only made about $2 million, and that's a crying shame. Of course, I think this is a defining point of this film becoming a cult classic as well. I imagine 20 years from now, you're going to have reviewers gushing about this lost gem from 2024. It absolutely has that feel to it. But those are the reviewers of tomorrow. Reviewers today are not being so kind. Rotten Tomatoes is sitting at 36% critic and 50% audience, and 44 over on Metacritic. However, it is odd that the consensus of negative reviews don't seem to home in on any particular element, casting one to wonder if the reviewers actually watched the film. But I digress. Sandra Hall, the Sydney Morning Herald, complains the horrors are piled on too much and too fast, which I strongly disagree with. I actually found the pacing quite good. Long, extended, quiet scenes to build up the tension, culminating in something deeply unsettling, and then a reset with some quiet moments. The Guardian's Leslie Felperin also slams the film, calling the script a mess, and the actors dead on the inside. Clearly, Leslie and I didn't watch the same film, as their critiques are in direct contrast to what I felt were the film's strengths. Two folks can watch the same film, come away with completely polar opposite experiences, I suppose. Finally, some kind words from Joel Harley of Starburst, stating the film is full of gothic chills and bloody action reminiscent of an Evil Dead film. Yes, I would absolutely agree with that. The Crooked Man does indeed harken me back to the Evil Dead, totally agree. And that's another element mentioned through various reviews was that the film felt like a YouTube fan flick. Yes, it absolutely does. And in fact, when I first saw it advertised, that's exactly what I thought it was. As I was viewing it here on YouTube, I thought a tiny little crew of unknowns had gone to Mignola and received his blessing to make this, and this was their little fan flick. To that end, I was blown away with how good this fan flick actually was. So it's entirely possible that me setting expectations to fan flick was treated to a wonderful movie where others expecting something at least on the production level of, the Ron Perlman movies and so on were turned off by it all. Possible. But I would defend this film to anyone. It's creepy as all get out. It has some outstanding performances. Really enjoyed the story itself. Everyone did a great job based on the production they had. Highly recommend this film. I've watched it probably 4 times myself, and now writing this here review, I want to dig it out again. So there you have it, folks. Hellboy the Crooked Man. Maybe give it a shot this holiday season if you're looking for something high on entertainment, but modest on production. And that's all I got for now, folks. I do thank you, each and everyone, for stopping by. Give me a moment of your time. Welcome to all the new faces to the channel. I appreciate y'all subscribing and joining us on this YouTube journey. Hopefully the algorithm stops burying my videos here in the near future. But now it's Saturday, folks. Pop in a cartoon this here Saturday morning. Keep the tradition alive. While you're at it, pop in a good movie, read a comic, roll some dice, gather around the table, make those memories, drink a little water, get some exercise. And if you're wondering where my gaming content went to, go check out my second channel, Solo Quest Games. And as always, have a good one.